Hello, economics. Today we're going to be talking about demand. We're actually leaving GDP behind, although your test is going to have GDP demand and supply on it. But we'll go over GDP before I make you take a test on it. I know it was really confusing for a lot of people. And it's really hard when you don't have a teacher there like guiding you through it, which I completely understand. So do not think that I'm going to expect you to um, be masters at reading GDP and understanding how it's used. Now, supply and demand are much easier. They're very intuitive, like they make sense. As where GDP, it's kind of, there's like, well, and not in this case, maybe in this case, it's not. So it can be very difficult. This should be easier. And I'm really sorry we don't have a teacher for you, a permanent teacher for you guys yet, but I hope that will happen soon. All right, well, let's get started on demand today. So first, oh, and by the way, this is your only job today. All you have to do is watch this video and fill out your notes, which is the law of the demand notes. And then you guys get time to yourselves, and you don't have any homework this weekend, so that's good. You get to enjoy yourself. And next week when you get back, well, I'll expect to do some work. And make sure that you get caught up. I'm not going to put any more new grades into 6 weeks, so just make sure that you see where you're at and then do your stuff, okay? All right, so I put this slide first because this is actually a graph of what happened to demand from January of 2019, so last year, during January 2019, to some predictions of what's coming. And it's all based on the effects of the coronavirus. Now, why are we concerned about demand in the coronavirus? We are concerned about it because there are 1 billion Chinese people in the world. And so when something happens to their economy, if the demand is not there for them, if people don't want to go out and purchase things, it's a lot of people that aren't buying things. And they buy a lot of American products. I know that we think that, we're the ones buying all the products and everything's made there. But honestly, the Chinese are a huge economy. They're the second economy in the world. They have a lot of money, so they definitely have a high demand for products. Now, if you notice this turquoise line here, this is actually the demand for oil globally. And you can see right about November, December, it started to go down. And this is when the coronavirus first started to hit. And they really started to quarantine people towards the end of December into January. And you can see that the demand for oil has gone down globally. This is why gas is so cheap right now. Now, the prediction is that by March, so you take it here, it's going to start going back up because they're starting to open the factories again. People are coming out of quarantine, so that the demand is going to go back up. So don't expect your gas prices to stay the same way. All right. Now, this also gave you best case scenario. So this is like this pink one right here. So this is if we maintain the current levels of the coronavirus, the new cases of coronavirus, then the demand could actually, it's going to hit its lowest level in February, and then it's going to immediately start to go up. And this may happen as long as it gets warmer. The cold air is actually makes the virus more easy to pass because everybody's coughing and they're freezing. Once heat starts to occur, the virus is actually it doesn't survive. Coronaviruses don't survive outside the body very well in heat. They need the cold. That's why flu and things like that tend to come in the winter. So worst case scenario, the demand for oil is going to go really, really, really low. This is maybe good for you at the pump, but it's not good for people that work for gas and oil companies, because they could see layoffs. Because if there's no demand for oil and the price of oil drops, that means that the companies are making less money, so they could start to lay people off. But even in worst case scenario, it has the demand for oil definitely going back up to normal ratings right around the summer, which is here. which means that once it gets hotter, demand should go back to its regular level. We do not, they are definitely not predicting a recession at this point, but let's say the virus gets even worse than it already is. It doesn't get warm. Winters takes longer than normal. They get snowstorms in March. Then we could be looking at a different picture. But right now, they are predicting that the coronavirus is going to start to ebb away by April to May, and then the demand will go back to normal. Because there are 1 billion Chinese. Once they get out there and start buying stuff again and start using their cars and filling up with gas, the demand for those products goes up because there's so many of them. And that means that we have to fill the supply for that. We have to make those products. So that's our two basic concepts for the next week: supply and demand. They're really, really simple and to the point. The only thing that may confuse you here is how we graph them, but I'll go slowly. So hopefully you guys will get this. All right, so this is your target. So you should be on your notes page now. So it says notes and it asks you for what's under knowledge. So you need to write these things down. If you need to pause it and write them down, well, that's good, but I'm going to keep talking. And so you can pause and start playing me again if you need. Now, today we're specifically just looking at demand, and I want you to focus on the relationship between demand and price. And this is pretty straightforward. If the price falls, the demand goes up. And if the price goes up, the demand falls. Pretty simple and straightforward. I'll explain a little bit further on the next slide. And then what we're going to do, the graphing that we're going to do, the way that we graph and track demand, it's called a demand curve, this right here. So we're going to look at those, and we're going to look at why sometimes they shift, or there is in other words, there's a decrease or increase in demand. Okay? All right. So here's the actual definition for demand. It says, if all things are equal, consumers will demand more of a product as its price decreases, and less of a product as its price increases. So this is very, it's intuitive. If you go to the store and you see a product and you see it's on sale, and you've been wanting to have this product, you've heard about it. I don't know, maybe it's a new face lotion or something. You heard it's really great. Makes your skin all clear, and it's on sale, and it's like $10 off or something. You're more apt to buy it, right? The increase, when the price goes down, the demand for the product will go up. That's the law of demand. Okay? So lower prices are incentives for you, for the consumer. So if they want to move a product, you have to make it at a reasonable price, right? If you make something so expensive that nobody can afford it, then the demand for it is going to be lower. Now, there is some goods that are like specialized, that are very, very expensive, but yet there's a demand for them. But they have a very specific group of people that can afford them and can buy them. And I'm talking about luxury goods like, you know, Hermes Birkin bags, which are like $15,000 a piece, right? No, the average person can afford that. But the demand for those are so great. Sometimes they're like they run out of stock because they're handmade. So demand can be it's not just about price, but it's almost always about price. If it's the regular people, if it's just the common person like you and I, then it's usually about price. And lower prices make the demand go up. Okay? Higher prices make the demand go down. Period. If you go to Macy's, Macy's, and you see this pair of shoes and it's $119.95, and you're like, oh, that's an awesome shoe, I think I'm going to get it. But then the next stop you make is DSW, and you find them for $89.95. Which one would you buy? You would definitely buy the cheaper one, or at least I hope you would, and save the $30 and use it on something else. That is the incentive. The incentive there is to save money, and it made the product more attractive, so you would buy it. So the lower the price, the higher demand. The higher the demand, the lower the price. If the price starts to go up, less people will buy it. Okay? All right. Now, let's graph this. Let me show you. We're going to go through how to graph a change in demand. Now, there are two things that we graph when we're looking at change of demand. There's the quantity demanded, and then there's price. So let me bring up this chart here. Okay, so we're on the first graph on your notes, okay? It says we're going to look at a change just along the demand curve. So it's giving you an example here. It says the price for lemonade might change from $2 to $1. So this is a price at $2. You go over here, you would sell $30 glasses of lemonade at $2. If you drop the price to $1, you would sell 50 glasses of lemonade. Okay, so how would you graph something like this? This is elementary level stuff, so do not be freaked out. All right, so what you do is you just draw a line from the 2 to the main bar. Draw a line from the 1 so you can show where the demand is. Sometimes you don't even have to draw this. Like if I'm grading them, you don't need to draw this. You would just have to show me a red line or a highlighted line with an arrow pointing downward saying the demand is going down. And that's what I did on my graph. If you look here, look closely, I just put the 2 lines and then I put an arrow going down, just showing that demand is going down. If demand was going up, I would put an arrow going this way. Very simple. Did we get that? Arrow going down because the demand is going down. Now, that's a change in the quantity. Let's say it's just a change in demand, right? So how do I graph that? So this is a change in the entire line because this is representing all of demand, not just in the, okay? So why would we need to, I'm moving this so I'm not in the way. Why would you look at this in different ways? Because if you're trying to track demand, the demand, when it's just changed by price, this can vary like from season to season. For instance, toys right around Christmas time are much more in demand than they are the rest of the year. So that can be related to the whole change in demand, like the big picture of how many products are being bought. If you're looking at just quantity demanded, it's usually just something that has to do with the price. Like maybe you put something on sale in your store, or there's just a difference in the price that made the demand change. But when you're looking at something like this, the change in demand, this is like something outside that is happening to this situation, whether it be like a special holiday, or maybe there was a hurricane and it knocked out a bunch of gas stations. So the demand for oil goes down because there's nobody can get it. That's what this is looking at. This one's looking at price. This one's looking at like what's happening, okay? In the whole, in the environment, in the world, in the business realm, it can be, things can change. Let's say we're talking about, this one is for a market for lemonade. Let's say a big freeze hits where they grow lemons, Mexico or Italy, a lot of Italy, South America. Let's say it gets too cold one winter and it kills off a bunch of the lemon crop. So the price to buy lemons goes through the roof. If that changes, that means it's just the price changing. So that would, yes, you would track this to the quantity demand. But let's say we come back here to this market in lemonade. Let's say that all of a sudden, limoncello shots become the big thing. If you don't know what that is, that's a liqueur made from lemon. Very popular in Italy, and it's usually handmade. So let's just say they become the popular thing and they become bottled, and some celebrity puts their name to the bottle and it becomes hugely popular. the demand for lemons, and the key ingredient in this, the lemonade, with the alcohol, goes up. That would change the entire demand. It's not just about price. It's about like a product out there that made everybody want it, or the scenario. Okay. So how do we graph this one? This one is even easier than the last one. So if you're going to change your demand, if there's an increase in demand, all you do is draw a line to the right and you label it D2. That's it. Really, really simple. So I'm going to let you have to write down the definition of change in demand. And these are the graphs where you actually show it. They're on the back of the notes. So if it's a change in demand, it's just going to be a move to the right. You just draw a line, put a little arrow that says to the right, like points in the right direction. So it's going up. If demand's going up, you go to the right. If demand is going down, you go to the left and you put a little arrow going down. Very, very simple. If the demand is going up, line is to the right with an arrow going up. If demand is going down, line is to the left with an arrow going down. Very, very straightforward. So here's an example here. Increase, line to the right. Decrease in demand, line to the left. That's it. I'm not going to make you graph anything harder than that. So you can be grateful for that. All right. Now there are 6 factors that cause the demand to increase. Okay. These are very key, and they're very straightforward. They make sense. One is consumers enter the market. If you have a bunch of people move to a place, then the demand for things is going to go up. So let's take Alamo Ranch, for instance, where you guys live or where the school is. All these homes are being built and there's cars everywhere and there's a need for wider roads. And that's why we have so much construction, because all these people have entered that market. There's tons of consumers buying houses. So therefore the demand is there for bigger highways. There's also gas stations popping up everywhere. There's an oil place on Alamo Ranch Parkway that's popping up. There's a demand. If there's people and consumers in cars, people are going to build things to meet the demand of the people. So we need gas stations. We need places to change our tires and change our oil. We need more grocery stores out there too. There's not enough, right? So new consumers enter a market, makes the demand go up. If consumers have more money, so like if the economy is doing well, which it is right now, if they have more disposable income, demand goes up. If you have money to go spend on stuff in the store, just for pleasure, man, the demand goes up, right? If consumer confidence is high, meaning like we feel good about our jobs, like we have extra money, we don't feel like we may lose our job at any time. That's what happens like in a recession or a depression. People feel unstable. If the consumer confidence is high, demand is going up, because that means that people are out there buying things. We are currently in that state. Our economy is doing very well. So demand is high. Consumers are buying things. There's a shortage of houses, especially in San Antonio. We don't have enough to meet the demand. We don't even have enough construction workers, if you didn't know that. For my seniors that are getting ready to get out of school, there is definite lack of construction workers. I've been reading article and article about it. Part of it is because they've cracked down on immigration so hard. There's nobody to fill those jobs, so we definitely need workers there. All right, sometimes products are just fads. I put the Tickle Me Elmo in here because in the early 2000s, this thing was like, you couldn't get it. One Christmas, it was so popular, like nobody had them, and everybody wanted them. And it didn't last very long. It only lasted a couple years. Nowadays, you can get these things anywhere. But at the time, because they were a fad and everybody wanted it for Christmas, they were hard to get. The demand was so high that they couldn't keep them in stock. But they couldn't sustain it. So that's a fad. Things like that happen. And then if one, like the demand can go up if a substitute product, the price of that increases. Um, it's kind of hard to think of an example for that one. Maybe um, people that don't put sugar, like little sugar packets. If like the cost of Sweet and Low and all those other sweeteners went through the roof, maybe people would just use regular sugar because it was cheaper. Or if sugar went through the roof because there was some catastrophe and the sugar cane started to die off, maybe people would start to buy the sugar substitute instead because it was cheaper. Remember, price and demand are always linked. So if the price goes too high, the demand goes down. And then also, if a price of a complementary good decreases. So an example of this is like when gas gets really low, the way it is right now, people actually are prone to buy big cars. They like to buy SUVs, especially in the United States. We like big things. We like big houses and big cars. We're just into those things. In about 2006, the gas prices went through the roof. They were like almost $4 a gallon. There was places it was almost $5, and that was here in Texas. At that time, because the gas was so high, people started to buy tiny little cars, like those little bitty smart cars, because it was so expensive to fill up a big car. Nowadays the gas is cheap, so like all of us, everybody's buying SUVs. Even the Hummer is coming out with a new one, even though it's electric. But no one ever thought those big cars would be marketable again, but they are. So when the price of a complementary good decreases, it can actually make something else, the demand for something else, go up. All right, the decreases in demand are the exact same things. They're just the opposite. So if consumers leave a market, if a bunch of people leave a city, then there's nobody to buy anything. If there's a recession or a depression and people start losing their jobs, they have less money, there's a decrease in demand because people can't afford to buy things. If consumer confidence is down because the economy is bad, then they're not going to go out and buy things. They're not going to go buy that house because they're not sure that their job is going to be stable for the next 30 years. So consumer confidence has to be high as well. Products can go out of style if the fad is over. Like I've got bell bottoms on here. A good example are jeans. Jeans always are changing. Obviously, bell bottoms in the 1970s, people were into that. In the 90s for a little while too. But the really low-rise jeans, like in the early 2000s, those are gone. I mean, they may still be around a little bit, but everybody's wearing high-waisted jeans now. So it just depends on what's in style. And then, of course, the substitute price, if that decreases, the demand will go up. And if the price of the complementary good increases, if gas prices start to go through the roof, people buy tiny cars. So it's the exact same opposite. So, I feel like I'm talking too much. We're getting it all done in one day, though. So if there is an increase in demand, let's review here, then there is, let's do the graphs first. So if there's an increase in demand, you're just going to draw a line to the right, label it D2 with a little arrow. If there is a decrease in demand, you draw a line to the left, label it D2 with an arrow. If you were walking into this without this lecture, you saw this graph, it said increase in demand, market for lemonade, it would just show you that the demand went so up that they were able to charge a higher price for it because there was a demand for it and they sold more. All right, so here's some laws. How does it affect quantity? If there is an increase in demand, there's going to be an increase in quantity. Why? Because if there's a demand for a product, people make it. If all of a sudden, like scrunchies, for instance, 10 years ago, nobody was wearing scrunchies. All of a sudden, everybody's wearing scrunchies again. So because there's a demand, people are making scrunchies. I always see girls like selling them in the hallways. Although 10 years ago, they were just not in style and people made fun of, in the 2000s, you would be made fun of if you were wearing scrunchie. So when there's a decrease in demand, when it goes out of style, the quantity decreases, obviously. If people don't want it, people don't make it. If people want it, they make it. So increase in demand, increase in quantity. Decrease in demand, decrease in quantity. Now, if there is an increase in demand, the price tends to go up. So even though if you want the demand to go up in the first place, you lower the price, right? But what happens when something's really, really in demand? You've got to think about it. So let's say you're a shoe designer and you design this one pair of shoes that is worn by LeBron James during a game. And it becomes hugely popular. Everybody wants it. And you actually made them for free for LeBron just so that you could get him to wear them, right? Well, when the demand goes up and you have thousands and thousands of people trying to get you to make these shoes for them, you can charge whatever you want for them, right? So maybe your first pair you charge $400, but then you realize this other guy's going to pay you $1,000 for them. The price can go up. If more people want it, then you can put the price up. But what ends up happening is that if the price goes too high, then people will stop to buy it. Because if it becomes unaffordable, completely unaffordable and unattainable, then the demand will decrease. You have to keep it even. You have to get it to a place where a consumer will still buy and others will still want it. Okay? Now, when there is a decrease in demand, obviously, if people don't want things, the price is going to decrease. This is what happens when you go to the store at the end of the season and they put everything half off, like all the Christmas stuff. It's all the stuff that's been left there. There's no longer a demand for it because Christmas is over. It's January 1. So they put everything 50 to 75% off to get it out of the store. So if there's a decrease in demand, there's a decrease in the price. Very intuitive, very straightforward. Okay? All right. So here is your last part that you are supposed to fill out. Oh, sorry. Okay. So make sure, I'm just gathering my thoughts here. Make sure you get all of your note sheet filled out, and that way next week when we do our class activity, and I'll record a video trying to walk us through that, you'll get these concepts without having to remember. Remember the simple rules. If the price goes down, the demand goes up. But if the demand goes too high, then the price can go up, because if everybody wants it, you can raise the price. If the price goes down, the demand will go up. But then if the demand is not there, the price will start to drop and you have to put things on sale, right? So just remember these key things about demand. They're these are things that you should know. They make sense. If you've ever shopped at H-E-B or any store, it makes sense. If somebody wants something, the price will go up a little bit. If somebody doesn't want something, they put it on sale. And oftentimes, if something was already a decent price, it makes people want it even more. So the demand goes up. Okay? All right. Well, have a good weekend. And hopefully you got all this down.